Brian Shaw has released the events for the 2024 Shaw Classic, so let's dive in and take a look at them.
It's hard to believe this is the 5th year of this competition, and it's fast become one of the best and biggest competitions of the year. Obviously 2020 it started off in Brian's gym during COVID, but now we're at a point where it's 8 huge events. I'm really excited about these events, and yes, for the absolute best athletes on the world as well, and a big lineup too.
Yeah, Brian puts on a great show. I think he's making this become a bigger and bigger event every single year. I always like the events that Brian puts in competition. I've got to say, I really like the look of these events. We'll talk about them in a second, but it seems to be getting bigger and better every single year.
So obviously it's still very early. This isn't until later in the summer, but we don't have an athletes list, but we do have the events now. So let's dive straight in with event number 1, which is the raw max deadlift. Now we say raw, straps are allowed, but other than that, it is raw. It is standard height.
You have no idea how excited I am for this event.
No, I know. I do. I know. And it's, again, just like the Arnolds, they're going to be choosing their own weight jumps, which I really like.
Yeah, so one thing that Brian and myself have in common is that we're not huge fans of deadlift suits.
Yeah.
And I am super, super excited to see what the top guys in the world can do without a suit on. I think we'll see some huge numbers, and, taking away the suits, it's about who's got the strongest legs and back, not who can get the most out of a suit.
Yeah.
And, it's a skill in itself, learning to get the most out of equipment. But I am very, very excited to see who ends up winning this event. The best deadlifters always come out on top in general. But there are a few athletes that do seem to get a lot out of a suit. Yeah. So I'm very, very excited to see this one. Just a raw deadlift. Obviously, Strongman, they're allowing straps. But no deadlift suit, no briefs, and only regular straps.
Yeah,
not
no
figure of eights. So, yeah, that's a good choice, I think, by Brian on this one. Gets the Big Loz seal of approval.
Oh. Event number 2 is going to be an overhead medley. Now, we don't have the specifics for this event, but we know it's going to be something like 2 logs, 2 axles, etc. It sounds like it's going to be really hard. And knowing Brian, it's going to be heavy. Yeah,
Brian makes, all Brian's events are heavy. Be quite cool to see like a very hard overhead medley with the log and the axle. I think it looks like it's going to be something like that. So, yeah, awesome event.
Event number 3 is a power medley. Now this could be the same as we've seen in previous years. So before it's been a grip event into a pulling event. So they had the wheelbarrow into the arm over arm vertical pull. So likely something similar to that. I do think that's been one of my favourite events at this competition.
Yeah, we've seen it a couple of times now. It's a good piece of kit. Visually looks really, really impressive. Testing various different elements of strength as well. And that's what I like about the 8 event contest. With a 5 or 4 event contest, sometimes you kind of don't get the opportunity to test all these different feats of strength. Whereas the 8 events, there's nowhere to hide. No. If you've got a weakness, it's going to be found out.
Event number 4, the manhood stones. Presumably this is the last event of day number 1 of the competition. So it's going to be a stone for reps challenge, and there are going to be different weights that the athletes can choose, with the heaviest stone being 273 kilos. So like in other competitions, like the Arnold's with the log, where there's a choice of different weight logs, any amount of reps on the heavier one will beat out any amount of reps on a lighter one. So you have to go as heavy as you can for as many reps as you can.
I know lots of like purist strength fans, again, liking this. It's not about speed.
No.
It's going heavy. Who can lift the most? I mean, reps, if they get to that, I mean, if anyone can get reps on the 273 kilo stone, that's pretty mental. But if Tom Stoltman's there, potentially Thor Bjornsson maybe likes the look of these events and decides he's going to do the Shaw Classic. I'm sure Brian would love that to happen. But who knows? I mean, potentially the return of Trey by this time.
Yeah.
He's back training.
Yeah.
There's some big stone lifters out there that would love a crack at that 273 kilo stone.
The next event is the Circus Dumbbell Overhead Medley, which is going to be done like a ladder style. So again, rising weights for this event.
Be interesting to find out what the weights will be when Brian announces them. They're going to be heavy.
It's going to be heavy. I think,
and how many as well.
Yeah. I can't see it start. It won't start lighter than 100 kilos. It's going to be like 100, 110, 120, 130, 140 maybe.
Maybe. The athletes keep getting stronger. expect it to be heavy.
The next one's really interesting. It's a keg toss for maximum height, but unlike in other competitions where we see this, we're actually going to see this at the Arnold UK, but with a sandbag. They're not going to be taking it in turns to go with the same height. So the athlete goes, they throw, height gets raised. They throw again, height gets raised. So it's a really interesting twist on an event that we have seen before.
Yeah, that is an interesting twist on it, because normally after a couple of throws you do start to fatigue a little bit, and it's not about speed per se, but it's about getting higher and higher. So it'll be interesting to see how much time athletes are allowed between events or between throws, if there is a set time limit that they've got to do it all between. Interesting kind of concept, I guess. If you want to see the absolute highest, you allow people to have that rest.
Yeah.
But it's a show as well, so you've got to keep things moving. So I get that side of things. But yeah, definitely a twist to it. I wonder if you'll get to have like 2 or 3 throws if you do fail it the first time, or is it just one throw and it's out?
No, you go until you fail. Okay. So once you fail, you're out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just being able to kind of focus on higher is going to be, because the weight gets heavier. We're used to getting heavier.
Yeah.
But each throw getting higher in that kind of time frame is an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. The penultimate event is going to be a squat. We don't have much in the way of details, but it's not going to be a regular squat on a standard squat bar.
I love squat events, but the only problem with squat events in Strongman is often there's issues in terms of judging and the machines that are used.
Well, we did see this a couple of years
ago at the Shaw Classic. They squatted a car, and there were some very weird results in terms of what you expect to see people squatting in the gym and then what they did in the competition on this particular setup. So I'm sure Brian has learnt from that and will be looking to get something adequate put in instead, because you want to see the best squatters win an event like a squat, not necessarily the people whose levers it favours to use a machine.
Who've been able to manipulate the machine in a certain way.
So I think that will be important, but we don't have any specifics yet.
No.
But a squat, always a great test of strength.
And finally, they're finishing with a Fingles Finger into Power Stairs medley, the same as we saw last year. And it was a great finale. Like, to finish with the winner on top of the stairs is always...
It's quite a nice one, you get that kind of the victory on top of the stairs, the embrace, you're the champion.
It's all about that embrace.
It's a good way to finish the competition. One thing I will say, last year's Shaw Classic, a lot of the athletes were absolutely battered
ruined by this point.
And looking at these events, I think we're going to see a number of battered athletes once again. It's a very, very tough and heavy competition. I think that's why people like it so much. It's the type of strongman competition Brian Shaw loves, and with these events that we don't quite know the weights and the specifics yet, guarantee that they're going to be heavy and hard the way Brian Shaw likes it.
Now, you mentioned this briefly earlier, Thor Bjornsson. Now, he was on this very channel saying that he loves the look of the Shaw Classic. However, the chest press really sort of turning him off a little bit because of that pec injury. As if by magic, the chest press is gone. Do you think that Brian's done that specifically to try and lure Thor?
I think Brian would love Thor to compete in this show.
Brian is smart, and Brian knows what a huge draw Thor is. Any promoter is going to want Thor Bjornsson in their competition.
If you are Thor Bjornsson looking at a competition to do and thinking, what events do I like? You just go through this. Max deadlift.
Yeah.
He loves a max deadlift.
Yeah, of course.
Manhood stones.
Yeah.
People used to talk about him as the greatest stone lifter of all time. He actually just stopped training stones, and then like Tom Stoltman kind of became the man. But believe me, Thor is hell of a stone lifter. I'd love to see those two battle it out. Tom and Thor head to head on some heavy stones would be unbelievable. The overhead suits him. Dumbbell, he's very, very good at dumbbell. He can avoid the pec tear with that. The log into you're going to have to expect some kind of overhead, so I think he'll be fine with that. But power stairs, he's unbelievable at. He's a great squatter. He's an unbelievable thrower.
Fingers, he's good at.
There's not an event here that Thor looks at and think, I don't fancy that.
No.
So I think potentially could be an event he decides to do.
And it could also be the first time that we see Mateusz Kiedaszkowski compete at this competition, because he's not made it.
He's not done it the last few years, but he has shown interest.
Yeah, he has shown interest too. So very exciting time for the competition. Very exciting for Brian as a promoter as well, because if he can get those two, and Like, I know he's never got Martins either, and that may not change because I think Martins has said, like, the Arnolds and Rogue are his focus this year, and Worlds as well, yeah. But to get those two would be such a huge pull for the competition, and for the fans as well, it would be the best possible.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of athletes that would love to compete there as well, that would be battling hard in the shows leading up to the Shore Classic as well. So it's great that we've got so many big shows in Strongman to look forward to. Really, really looking forward to this one. The events look fantastic. Good job, Brian, with the events. Can't wait to see the lineup.